Hello, everyone. If you're watching this recording, you were likely at the Connections That Matter event, Trust Square, on September 19th in Zurich, and you probably made a request from my slides. Because my slides are kind of minimalist, I don't think sending out slides is going to be very useful, but I thought I would do a recording of my monologue to the slides so that you can at least get a sense of what was talked about. So my name is Mike Fritz. I'm the founder of 4D Solutions, originally located in Calgary, Canada, but as of 2 years ago, now located in Switzerland. And today my presentation is about finding connections that matter, how to use LinkedIn to find and connect with people that are relevant to you. So for example, if you're a salesperson, maybe that is client prospects. If you are a company looking for partners, maybe that's an international partner. And if you're a hiring manager with open vacancies or someone trying to find a job, perhaps that's getting connected with them. So my presentation is going to be in two parts. Basically, the first part is going to be a brief story on my story, my journey in the last few years, and how I got here today. And then I'm going to tell you your story and how I used my 4D processes and LinkedIn to get you here today, and how your bum ended up in that seat. So my story begins a long time ago in a place far away in pre-pandemic Canada. Life was good. I was traveling the globe for German software vendors. I was building up partner channels and organizing and filling events, selling software, meeting lots of great people around the world. And as I said, life was good. Then life got a little harder, along with everyone else in the world, when COVID hit. Not from the illness so much. I was vaxxed 5 times, got it twice, but the lockdowns and the travel restrictions, they severely impacted my business. I mean, I was dependent on travel and face-to-face meetings to make my living. And working for German software vendors, my German clients hunkered down, slashed spending, and as a foreign contractor, I was among the first to go. So after pandemic restrictions started easing in September 2022, I decided it was time for a fresh start, a new beginning. I dusted off my Swiss passport, packed my bags, hopped on a plane, and came to Zurich to see if I could start my life again and set my company up over again here. The first few weeks, they were pretty tough, staying in hotels and living out of suitcases. And I also realized how non-existent my Swiss business network was. But thankfully, I'd managed to reconnect with several long lost cousins. And despite not seeing them for decades, a couple of them really opened up their hearts and their homes to me. And that gave me the foundation that I needed to begin setting up. Looking into my LinkedIn network, I had less than 100 Swiss business connections at the time. And so that's a big problem. So I set myself a goal of getting to 5,000 within 2 years. And happy to say that's the goal that I've reached today. I also quickly realized how expensive Switzerland was and that I needed to address my cash flow situation pretty quickly. And without business connections, that's pretty hard to do. But something I've learned over the years is that when you need to find work quickly, it's best to go to people where you already know them and there's already trust. And while I didn't have many Swiss business contacts yet, I did have a few German ones. And that included Stefan, Ralph, and Oliver, who I had worked with pre-COVID. Stefan had ended up as CTO, Chief Technology Officer of Devaso in Germany. And in chatting with him, he told me about his problem filling several vacancies that had been open for many months. I described to him my 4D approach, and he gave me a chance, brought me into their HR, and within 30 days, we had filled several of the open vacancies. Similar story with Ralph. Ralph was climbing the corporate ladder at Palfinger in Austria. He decided to give me a shot too, and I helped him build up his LinkedIn presence and connections. I spent a week in Salzburg with him with the newfound best practices. He was able to continue to grow his network on LinkedIn and continues to climb the corporate ladder over at Palfinger. Third individual, Oliver. He had become a sales executive for a large multinational. He was frustrated with the lack of leads he was getting from their marketing department, and I helped him implement my process to become self-sufficient. He continues to be quite successful, so much so that he caught the eye of senior management and some of his colleagues, who also began getting active on LinkedIn. So my first clients are these three folks, and it basically set me up for the next phase after establishing some cash flow and getting a couple of other contracts and things. I'm going to fast forward 1 year. 1 year, it was time to see if my Swiss network had grown large enough. It was about 3,000 by that time, to see if the Swiss were ready for face-to-face events, just like how I'd been doing pre-COVID. So I organized and filled my first event in years, the Swiss CFO event at the Marriott in August 2023. It was sponsored by Sarah Vizzo and one of their technology partners, and I managed to fill the room with about 120 senior finance people using three profiles, mine and the two founders. It was a successful event which caught quite a bit of attention, including the folks at Aplico. They basically also were interested to see if I could help them out. Their CEO pulled me in and I met with he and two of his senior staff. Long story short, I did manage to convince them. He did give me a shot, and they pulled in a couple of co-sponsors, which were Horvath and Aid Advisory. And just a few months ago, after several months of effort to organize things, we delivered the Executive Finance Summit at the Vidder Hotel, about 160 CFO minus ones in attendance. So life was starting to get good again. It was good. I was loving my new home in Zurich, and there was good opportunities on the horizon. I do know that in the actual live presentation, there was many of you that were at both of those events, and it was senior finance people mixed in with a bunch of other types. But I made a joke about the next slide being a little bit awkward because I'd been focusing on finance so much. There was still something missing at that point, and I didn't feel fully myself yet. And then I realized 100% focused on topics that are less of an interest to me. And so I decided I needed to do something fun. So thinking about fun, I knew just who to call. Herman Ramirez, who I had seen speaking at the Digital Executive Forum. And I remember approaching him on the evening networking after it and saying, Mr. Ramirez, you don't know me yet. I don't know where and I don't know when, but we're going to do an event together sometimes. And about 3 months ago, I reached out to him. I asked if he remembered me and if he wanted to meet. And I described the connections that matter concept. And several beers later, he said something like, Mike, there's a fun factor when I consider special projects, and this is definitely fun, so I'm in. So that was great. That started the ball rolling on the Connections That Matter event. Same time, I had reached out to Steph, today's moderator, and I explained my idea to her. We did some brainstorming, and then she basically said, yeah, let's do this thing. Let's do it right, and hit it out of the park. And that's how today's Connections That Matter event came to be. So that's the first half of the story on how I got here. I'll switch over now to the second half on how you got here into this room using my 4D process. The next 4 slides are basically a breakdown of the process that I've been using for many years. I'll try to summarize in a few minutes, basically 15 years of work and trial and error and fine tuning. And each of the slides, I'm going to do a bit of a free form here, which is what I typically do. And it depends on audience interactions on what the discussions go like, but let's try without an audience here. So the first stage of the process is really understanding who are connections that matter to you and intentionally target them. At the event, for example, by show of hands, I asked how many of you were first connected with me, and you saw that probably 95% of you are my first connections, and that's how you got in the room, through an invitation, a one-on-one personal invitation from me on LinkedIn. I know your demographics by show of hands. I think we showed that it was largely, in this particular case, the people that mattered for this event were Zurich based or the surrounding areas, because it was a physical event. Aargau, Zug, and Luzern were also represented. I also showed that by show of hands, the job functions were somewhat diverse, but the 4 key areas where I have a network and that have connections that matter to me are in sales, in marketing, in the HR/recruitment space, and obviously the finance space that I had been focused on. And then a couple of the additional dimensions when you're really thinking about who matters and who you want to connect with. You have to think about the industry they're in. LinkedIn has hundreds of industries. The top 4 in my case are like IT services, software development, financial services, business consulting, for example. And then things like company details, company size, for example, headcount, because whoever matters to you, it's going to be relevant if they're in a small solopreneur organization or very small, under 10 people, maybe 200 plus, or large companies of up to 10,000 plus. And if you know who to intentionally target and selectively go after them, then it makes your life much easier, because without that, you're kind of just shooting in the dark. So that's the first phase of my 4D process. The next phase is just adopting a special, different way of actually using LinkedIn to connect, purposefully connect, and don't pitch. Don't use full automation to blast out hundreds and hundreds of hi, you would like to connect, or even without any sort of personalized messaging. This is your chance to purposefully connect with someone, tell them why you'd like to connect with them, and write a personalized message. So, for example, anyone who's connected with me, 95% of the time, it's me reaching out to you and asking for a connection request. I don't believe in the attract followers and then they'll come to you, because frankly, that doesn't really work. You haven't opened up communication channels. So it's a genuine, authentic, one-on-one, time invested connection. Sure, there's some automation tools, and LinkedIn filtering and some other things to semi-automate things to speed it up, but it's still a human being that has to decide, is this a person I want to connect with? The connection at this point is nothing more than trying to open up communication channels. Don't pitch. We're all on the receiving end of those obnoxious connection requests that are already trying to pitch something. And if you're talking about a senior person in an organization that you want to connect with, and you're already asking them if they want to book a meeting to talk about your services, like, that's ridiculous. There's no trust there yet. But it does open up communication channels, which means that you're circumventing phone calls, you're circumventing emails and spam filters and gatekeepers. And if you connect with someone, you can direct message them on LinkedIn and begin the next phase. And this point, you're still doing slow engagement. Do not pitch yet. Single biggest piece of advice I can give you. What happens next is there has to be some trust building of some kind. Build up trust so that they are receptive to an open dialogue, and have a conversation. Providing real value to them is the best way of building trust. And by real value, I don't mean, oh, here's a white paper in exchange for your contact information and your email and phone number. That is ridiculous marketing crap that just doesn't work and is obnoxious. But what you can do is you can really understand who they are and then do something to provide real value. For example, the event, the Connections That Matter event, where between myself and Sandra and Herman and Vanessa and Steph, we all put a lot of effort into putting together an awesome event that you give us your valuable time. We will give you back some valuable insights based on our individual expertise areas. And then at the same time, if there's a need for something in the future, we hope the trust has started to build, whether you're trying to build up your LinkedIn strategy, whether you're trying to understand how to use Lego Serious Play to increase team communication, whether it's an interest in personal branding or even public speaking or something, you're going to contact one of us to have a further dialogue based on our individual presentations and the trust that's starting to build. In any case, whatever you're offering as value, make sure that you take the opportunity to gently interact with the individual. Maybe it's finding something that is very relevant to a subset of your contacts, and focus on identifying the pain points and the business needs that the individuals have. Engage them in some dialogue. Maybe go as far as offering a web meeting or something so that you can listen to their insights and thoughts about where their challenges are business wise. And then if your product or service fits, you can actually take the conversation into the final step 4 of the process, which is going to be individual and unique for everyone. But that's when you're actually proactively having a dialogue and trying to get down to business. What your goals are have to be figured out right in the beginning, because they are deciding who you're going to try and connect with. And then you're going to go through those 3 previous stages. And once those are done and you're in a position to have a meaningful dialogue, and whether you're trying to close a business deal of some kind, whether you're trying to fill a vacancy, or whether you're trying to find a partner for your international business, at this point, with the previous 3 steps, you're going to have a much more meaningful dialogue. So in closing, I remember there's a couple of quotes I'm going to leave you with. It's my least liked quote and my favorite quote, and we're going to start with the least liked quote, and that's basically never mix business with pleasure. I think that's crazy. We spend so much time doing business. If we don't actually derive some pleasure from it, mixing business and pleasure is essential. Obviously, it depends how you define pleasure. Over the couple of years that I've been here in Switzerland now, when I think back of mixing business with pleasure, top left is Herman Ramirez. Found out he's the lead singer of a band called Soundville. So I organized a meetup, brought a bunch of people together, and it was awesome. Had a great time, but also met several senior finance professionals. The Executive Finance Summit event that several of you in the audience attended, I mean, that was fun, and I could see people networking and making friends, transitioning way out of just regular business relationships and stepping right into building some lifelong personal friendships and things. And then in the bottom, there's the Canadian Swiss Chamber of Commerce barbecue. We had a Canada Day barbecue recently, and that ecosystem of people has turned into several friends and more, and there's several attendees of the event. Bottom line, don't mix business with pleasure. I think that's BS. Which brings us to the final slide of my presentation and my favorite quote of all time by Canadian hockey player Wayne Gretzky: "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." If 2 years ago I hadn't made the hard decision to pack my bags and come here to Switzerland and establish myself with a new life and setting up my business here, none of us would know each other. Yet here we are, 2 years later, many business associates and friends and others in the crowd that changed my life for the better in the last couple of years. So on that note, ends my presentation. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me directly and one-on-one. I encourage everyone to take your shot, take a chance, do some networking, have an awesome evening, and remember, in the words of Wayne Gretzky, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take, so take one.